Good morning, and welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church in-person and online worship. I am Anna Noyes Benoit, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for the earth. Each month, Allen Avenue supports a nonprofit organizations whose mission aligns with our Unitarian Universalist principles. This month, Allen Avenue is supporting the Bombazine Land Trust, which is an intertribal Wabanaki initiative to heal our lands and people. The project is organized by Wabanaki people. They are dedicated to social and environmental justice in Wabanakiak to protect and honor culturally significant places through the rematriation of ancestral lands and the continuance of cultural practice and presence. The social justice team needs your suggestions for Share the Plate recipients in the coming year. It's easy to make recommendations by selecting Share the Plate on the social justice page of our church website. The candidates will be drawn in June at the June meeting, so please get your suggestions in the near future. This morning's service is called Spire, and is presented by the Allen Avenue Worship Committee. Lay-led worship is a tradition in this and many Unitarian Universalist societies. At Allen Avenue, the Worship Committee either sponsors or presents one such service a month. In our summer services, starting in June 26, are lay-led, and almost all the spots are filled. But we have one more service in mid-August. If you're interested or want to know more, please speak to one of us on the worship committee today. And finally, our annual meeting will be held at 11 a.m. on June 12th, 2 weeks from today. It will be held in both hybrid format and live on Zoom. There will be one worship service at 10 a.m., so the annual meeting will follow immediately after that. We're so glad that you have joined us. Thank you.
Our words for chalice lighting are by Cynthia Landrum. For the wonder and inspiration we seek from sun and stars, and all the lights of the heavens, we light this chalice. Our words for call to worship are by Susan Menke Seal, entitled Out of Our Yearning. We speak to the God, the goddess, the spirit of life, the eternal. We speak to the mysterious thread that connects us, one to the other and to the universe. We speak to the deep wisdom at the center of our beings. We embody the yearning of all people to touch each other more deeply, to hear each other more keenly, to see each other's joys and sorrows as our own, and know that we are not alone unless we create solitude for ourselves. And even then, community awaits us. Out of our yearning, we have come to this religious community. May we help each other to proclaim the possibilities we see, to create the community we desire, to worship what is worthy in our lives, to teach the truth as we know it, and to serve with justice in all the ways that we can, to the end that our yearning is assuaged and our lives fulfilled in one another. Let us go now into the silence of the faith that is unique to each of us and still the same. Let us be silent together for a moment. May peace be yours.
Good morning. My name is Polly Juno. I'm a member of the worship committee, and my granddaughter, who was with me at the beginning first service, is choosing to be back there right now. Before we get started on the book, I wanted to just give you a little history about the author. Dalla Vipkar was born in 1917, and she was raised in Greenwich Village and summered on a farm her parents bought in Maine. Her father was a famed sculptor named William Zorach, and her mother was a well-known artist named Marguerite Zorach. Dalla married Adolf Ipkar in 1937 and moved permanently to the farm in Georgetown, where she died in 2017, a few months short of her 100th birthday. In the 1940s, Dalla was becoming recognized as an accomplished young painter, but she also launched a 4-decade run of more than 30 children's books, which she both wrote and illustrated. In our book today, The Calico Jungle, which was published in 1965, her illustrations marked a dramatic change in her style as she began to explore the endless possibilities of pattern. We hope you enjoy it and dream about how things are not always as obvious as they seem. The Calico Jungle, written and illustrated by Dalla Vipkar. We wait for them to, okay. Here we go. Okay. So, Calico Jungle, written and illustrated by Dalla Vipkar. Once there was a little boy whose mother made him a wonderful calico quilt for his bed. It was a beautiful quilt, all covered with jungle trees, flowers, and animals. Every night, after his mother tucked him into bed and kissed him goodnight, the little boy lay there in his bed in the dim evening light and looked at all the animals among the strange and wonderful trees. Under the trees, calico flowers grew and calico butterflies flew. There were peacocks and rabbits there. You can see those. Some of the animals were not easy to see. The little boy had to look hard to see the black and white zebras hiding among the tree trunks. And he had to look carefully to see the coyly spotted snake winding its way through the tree full of flowers and fruits. There were tall giraffes hiding there with their heads above the treetops, eating leaves. High in the treetops, calico squirrels climbed about eating nuts, and calico birds flew from branch to branch, pecking at bright fruits. Some of the animals were easy to see, such as the white unicorn and the big black rhinoceros, each with one long horn. Grazing among the trees were wild antelopes with long horns. Some of them were running away to hide in the depths of the jungle. And in the very middle of the jungle was a lovely deep green pool. There were big black elephants, gave each other shower baths. Fish swam in the pool, calico fish with strange shapes and bright colors, shining like jewels in the rippling green water. Fat black hippos splashed in the pool, and big green crocodiles swam there. Long-legged birds waded in the water, catching fish. And all the animals came to the pool to drink. And deeper in the jungle, beyond the pool, where it was quiet and dark and peaceful, the little boy found a sleeping lion and a sleeping tiger and a small jungle cat asleep under the bush. And further on, a camel and a spotted horse were sleeping side by side under a big calico tree, and a small spotted dog was curled up tight in a sleepy ball. All the animals were asleep at the far end of the quilt, and by the time the little boy had explored that far, he was growing sleepy too. He closed his eyes, then he fell asleep and dreamed that he was walking through the Calico Jungle, under the flowering trees where all the strange and wonderful animals lived. The end. And if you would join me now in singing our opening hymn, number 64 in the Gray Hymnal.
Good morning. I am Keith Prairie, and I am a member of the worship committee. And this is what I wrote for aspiring today. Climbing the Ratlins. Resilience is the ability to keep working towards a goal even when it seems obstacles are thrown up to block us. When I was in Oakland, California in grad school in 1989, the Bay Area was hit by an earthquake which made several sections of the Oakland Bay Bridge collapse, killed many, damaged numerous roads and buildings, canceled a World Series baseball game, and wreaked havoc to the communities, governments, businesses, and people. At the time, I was helping out at the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. The quake damaged the bell tower, and engineers made hasty surveys to determine the tower and building in close proximity was off limits until repairs could be made. The same church had similar, more extensive damage in a 1906 earthquake, and likewise, people in those times had the resilience to recover and rebuild. Having a bell tower, which many saw and heard, the bell calling folks forth to worship, inspired the worship. But there was a secret inspiration that only a few of us shared, including me, and that was seeing the view from the top of the bell tower. It took several flights of stairs and a couple shaky ladders to get to the top. But was marvelous once the pigeons flew away. Not as precarious as some places I've admired a view from. One summer I had the pleasure of crewing on the schooner Mercantile, sailing out of Camden. It was a 120-foot, two-masted schooner, and as deckhand there were a few times where I had to climb aloft. Climb the sail hoops, up the mast, to clear a rope stuck in a pulley. It was well worth the challenge to have a few moments aloft, quiet moments to admire the Penobscot Bay. Our spire towers above us. A few of us notice as we pass from the parking lot through the gauntlet of arches that welcome us into the building. When it comes up, I often joke about having a giant illuminated question mark suspended above the church. A thought stolen from Rick. A question mark would represent the unrequited questioning our church and denomination seem attracted to. In days of green energy, it would be so nice to have a wind turbine up there mounted to be lulling us into a deep meditative state as the blades whooshed by. Whoomp, whoomp, whoomp. But if there were a rope and pulley, we could unfurl a flag and let it flutter. What flag to fly, though? We would need a committee created to do the flag figuring, and we would need to add items to the budget. And it too could be the flag figuring. Perhaps different flags for every day of the week. To have something tall that is part of the building, something obvious that we can aim for as we are looking for our place of worship. Our home is a comforting landmark. And some churches have chosen a tower with bells to ring out to the community and congregants to gather. It is time for worship, time for community. I imagine climbing the Ratlins up the spire and having moments of quiet as I feel the earth shift and move below me. If it were up to me, I would put a crow's nest with Ratlins to climb so we could take turns with the view and maybe occasionally haul my dulcimer up and play to the woods and trees and anyone else who might be close. Alas, that is my pipe dream. We've had this spire since the church was built, and once again are looking up, asking if it has a purpose. It does. This is our place of worship. This is our community. This is our gathering place, our home.
Morning, my name's Mike Luce, yet another member of the worship committee. Not long after our conversation about our spire, I took a longer look at it. I parked a little ways back so I could take a good gander on my meander towards the church. Funny thing, almost immediately my gaze was meandering over to that graceful dawn redwood, sort of a spire itself, pointing up to what? Well, that's the question a lot of us ask in this church. Anyway, I found that I just naturally wanted to contemplate on nature's physical manifestation of a questing, seeking, pointing symbol rather than the simple wooden stick, graceful as it is, and if you know me, you know I admire a good stick of wood. So this spire of a tree just naturally gets me inspired, and the fact that its root system is shaped similarly, but pointing the other way, just completes the metaphor of questing, pointing, seeking. The original reason for church spires was to symbolically be closer to the heavens. That's nice. But the roots ground us, literally in a nicely metaphoric way. This grand dawn redwood balances the spire. A lot of these thoughts occurred when I was in even closer connection with this tree, working on some limbs I collected when it was trimmed last year. It was about connections between heaven and hell and the Christian tradition that many of us grew up in, and how these spires direct all the attention up in supplication. I was thinking about that root system, spreading unseen below, directly, literally, organically connected to that questing spire above ground, each one necessary to the other's existence. So then, as I was inspecting and starting to strip these long, really pretty twisty branches, I started to think about how well their shapes represented my own thoughts and questions about that old life, the universe, and everything question. I mean, really, go take a closer look at that trunk out there made up of weaving branches. Looks like a Gordian knot. Another great metaphor for our spiritual game of blind man's bluff. I can make that spiraling tree out there represent so much. If you stand back, you make out the graceful, curving shape of an absolutely beautiful tree in all its mature glory. The closer you get, the more you see the irregular branches going this way and that. It's an absolute maze in the center, and lots more inside, impossible to fully understand. And that's the message I get from really contemplating what it tells me that seems to be true about our myriad attempts to explain the wonder of it all. The more we try to explain the details, the more we're likely to miss the point. And that's the beautiful picture of its wholeness.
This piece was written by Denise Curry, who couldn't be here today due to COVID. One of the most distinct features of a Christian church is its steeple. Back when the church was in the center of town, the steeple would often be the highest structure in the area. Steeples invite people to look heavenward. They were built to remind people to think about God, up there, and heaven, up there, as they entered the church building. Steeples also housed bell towers, which rang out the hours of the day and called people to come to church, with their secondary role being to warn people in an emergency. So, why does A2U2 have a spire? I'm assuming, and this is all guesswork on my part, that it is a nod to a steeple. It is not the tallest structure in town, and it does not have a bell tower, so what is its purpose other than to make people look up and cast their view to the sky? But Unitarian Universalist churches like ours are often steeped in humanism and require that we look out at those around us for inspiration, rather than some mystical being in the sky. It makes me wonder if the spire was built by someone who didn't know a lot about UUs. So when I first saw the spire, I thought about what it could mean to us now that our connections to Christianity are so often thinly drawn. Looking up requires that we take our view away from what we're doing, unless we're looking for storm clouds or at the stars. If we're driving, gardening, mowing the lawn, even walking into the church building, we're focused on the task at hand. We're busy doing something, even if it's just putting one foot in front of the other. Looking up is a pause in that action. It often requires that we stop what we're doing. It means stopping and taking in what's around us. Looking up means we are looking away from what grounds us. When practicing yoga, a more advanced move is to settle into the pose and then look up. It seems simple, but your center of gravity and focus is off, and it's very easy to lose your balance when you do this move. You have to trust that the earth is beneath you and that it will still support you. So for me, looking up means to trust. We need to trust that there is support around us, either from the earth below us or the people around us. We can't and shouldn't expect to do everything on our own. Another way of looking at the spire is to think about another way we look down. So much of our time we spend hunched over on our computers, our phones, or slouching watching TV, that it takes a concerted effort to stand up and look up. We have become, in many ways, a culture of navel-gazers, physically and often mentally. In the virtual world, we worry about how we look in a Zoom meeting, or how many people have liked our posts or responded to our texts. We tend to think that everyone is watching us, or ignoring us, because, darn it, I texted them an hour ago. Why haven't they responded? We're often under the illusion that what looks engaging in the outside world is actually very inward focused. We tend to forget that other people may have other things to do other than respond to our texts. Pre-internet, if someone didn't answer the phone, we just assumed they weren't home or were busy. No offense taken. But now with our phones in our pockets, we often don't give people that pass. So, aspire could also mean that we need to look up more from our devices and look at the people around us and engage in what is going on around us, rather than worrying about what is happening in the virtual world. That can wait. It's the people around us now that matter. Aspire can take on many meanings, which, of course, is the job of a symbol. We shouldn't get too hung up on what it meant in the past. It's how we use it today to think about what is important to our lives that makes a symbol relevant. What does aspire inspire us to do? I suggest to trust more and engage more. Each week, our staff and volunteers create meaningful spiritual experiences. We have religious education programming, spiritual enrichment groups, and a variety of opportunities to create community. 1/3 of the funds we receive from the offering go to the Share the Plate recipient, which this month is Bomazene Land Trust. There's a QR code on the back of the program if you want to donate electronically, or you can wait for the plates to go around. For those online, you can go to our website and use the donate button and indicate it's for the Share the Plate. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received.
Good morning. I'm Rick Kimball, and I've spent almost 50 years in this church trying to search through and see into the mystery. And today I have found that all I need to do is take my mask off, and my glasses stop fogging, and I can see all there is to see. But that's worth a sermon, but I'm not going to give it. I'm going to read something else. Everybody needs to be needed. That makes A2U2 a great place to be because we need you to usher, to lead RE classes, to sing in the choir, to clean up the grounds, to give money, which many of you just did. And now we have some new needs to announce. We need steeplejacks to climb to the top of the spire that rises above our sanctuary, to plant there a symbol, perhaps an eternal chalice flame, perhaps a question mark, maybe even a flaming question mark, or if not a symbol, then one end of a long, thick rope or chain. We also need a tractor owner and driver to hook on to the lower end of that long rope or chain and gently pull the spire back, and in the process tilt it out and down so that the whole attached church slowly tips upward, with the rear of the sanctuary rising enough so we finally have stadium seating. And those in the back row can see at last what's happening in the front. Let me show you what I mean with this photo. As the tractor pulls, the back of the church will come up. The trees and bushes included, because everything is connected underground. Connection is a good thing. Our foyer will rise as well, of course, and anybody in it will come hurtling down toward our sanctuary door. So we need more volunteers to serve as people catchers, to protect the fallen, and to keep them from making loud crashing noises during our prayers. But we need other volunteers as well, like sail makers, to create huge canvases to attach to the spire, so when the rising tides of global warming finally reach us, we can sail away to the White Mountains at our west. Finally, perhaps more realistic, we need philosophical thinkers to help us determine the reason for and the purpose of that spire. For, to be honest, they are unlikely to be what I have just suggested. What was the architect thinking when we were designing? What were the carpenters thinking when they were building and nailing that big stick into place? Well, the answers, my friends, lie deep in the thick mists of mystery. But wait, I just spoke and you just heard the answer. Maybe you philosophic thinkers can go worry about something else. Let me expand and expound my thought. That may be coming from the top of the spire. If so, somebody got there before the rest of us. But I'm expanding and expounding my thought because we do not know what the spire is for. We do know what the spire is for. It's a statement of mystery. The mystery that Allen Avenue is meant to explore in its music and its readings and its sermons, in its sanctuary and its wooded grounds and its RE wing. The answer is a non-answer. It's mystery. The spire's upward taper suggests penetration of that mystery. Penetration, but not solution. Totally unraveling and solving the mystery is a task forever beyond us, but exploring it is a task that fulfills a basic and profound human need to probe the unknown, to dig, to discover, to find new unknowns. So yes, we need you, not really as steeplejack or tractor driver, not as people catcher or sail maker, but as member and friend committed to answering life's essential call to understand itself and its cosmic home. And yes, again, we all needed to be needed. So here, in the shadow of our spire, we are home. We are fulfilled. Let us now hear the choir singing an anthem that echoes some of these thoughts. The anthem is called The Spire, but it should be called Why, Oh, How, Why? For why, who, how, and why. Now, the choir is going to be singing with its masks on, so the words are going to be hard to understand. So I'm going to read them before we go. A2U2 has got a spire pointing directly at the sky. But why is it there, we must inquire. Oh, why? 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 Why is it such a naked spire? Should it not give a simple clue? A symbol that hints just who we are? Oh, who? Who we all are is questing church, digging for truth of then and now. We ask what and how in endless search. Oh, how? Digging is how we truth unmask. Our spire aspires to make us wise, by leading us all to think and ask, oh, why?
My name is Erica Bartlett, and even though I grew up coming to A2U2, I have to admit that before we started talking about the service, I don't think I'd ever noticed the church spire. I wasn't even sure where on the building it was until I went looking for it. And then once I saw it, the first thing that came to mind was that the spire might not have any deeper meaning. It seemed more like an artist's flourish, the sort of thing that might satisfy artistic sensibilities without having or needing a grander purpose. But as I looked at it longer, I started seeing it more as the mast of a ship. I could picture a sail billowing from it, if we had a prow to attach the sail to, and it could help get us where we wanted to go. Or perhaps the spire would be a good spot for a ship's crow's nest, as Keith mentioned, where we could sit to survey the land and see what lay ahead. Then again, perhaps it could be a literal crow's nest, or perhaps an osprey nest or eagle's nest. Wouldn't that be a sight, to come to our church and see a massive nest up there with fledglings learning to fly from our roof? And you can get a sense of what that might look like from this photo in front of me, a photo that Polly took of a hawk perched on top of the spire. More realistically, perhaps the spire was meant to evoke the old bell towers of churches like First Parish. I could imagine bells hanging from it, sounding the time, or perhaps simply chiming with a passing breeze. Or maybe it could be considered a more modern means of communication, an abstract radio antenna or cell phone tower, listening for messages coming our way and sending them back out to the world, trying to reach those in need of a caring community. But even with all those possibilities, I still come back to the idea of a sailing ship's mast. The imagery of setting sail into new adventures and uncharted waters seems to capture where we're at right now. And for those of you here in the sanctuary, you're facing that imaginary ship's prow, looking in the same direction as we all work together to bring us safely through rough waters and to celebrate moments of easy sailing, whenever those might come along. So while I know the church isn't the building, having a building where we can gather together is important, as we learned when we couldn't do that during the pandemic. And since we have this building, with its unusual spire, perhaps we can let it be a focal point, something to help draw us back together as we sail into the unknown. And I invite you to join us now in our closing hymn, number 108 in the gray hymnal, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Please rise as you're able.
As we extinguish our chalice and end our time of meeting together, reflecting on the spire that sometimes inspires, let us be open to the inspiration offered by others, and let us know that we ourselves may act and speak as inspiration to them, each inspiring other as we strive together to build beloved community. Blessed be.